Let me tell you the story of this burger and fries. This meal is being served inside a Fairchild C-123 cargo plane in Manuel Antonio, Costa Rica. In 1986, its twin was shot down in Nicaragua, exposing the decade's biggest political scandal. Once a symbol of secrecy, now a trivial artifact. What can this shift tell us about how the United States addressed political scandals over time?
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
In the mid 1980s, a covert operation defied Congress, gave arms to enemies, and quavered public trust. The Iran-Contra affair exposed how the Reagan administration secretly sold weapons, using the profit to fund Nicaraguan rebels. This violated constitutional checks and balances related to rights and responsibilities by raising questions among the public and the citizens' views of the government's responsibility to protect national security, as well as balancing the citizens' right to transparency. In Nicaragua, the U.S. feared communists after the Sandinista government came to power in 1979. Iran has an anti-American reign rising, and during the mid-1980s, Reagan's secret efforts to fund anti-communist forces joined Central America and the Middle East, leading to one of the largest political scandals of the 20th century.
The story of the Iran-Contra affair began on November 4th, 1979. On that day, 3,000 Iranian students occupied the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran, and held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. By the time the hostages were freed, Ronald Reagan had already been sworn in as president in 1981. In response, Congress banned U.S. arms sales to Iran through Operation Staunch, established in 1983. But by 1985, history repeated itself, and 7 more Americans were taken in Lebanon by Hezbollah, a group with close ties to Iran. They were desperate to get those hostages home, and they believed Iran could help. Meanwhile, the Reagan administration was still fixed on supporting the Contras, anti-Sandinista rebels in Nicaragua, even though Congress had passed the Boland Amendment on December 21, 1982 because of the cocaine trade. The American people were oblivious to what was happening. 2 crises, American hostages taken by Hezbollah and the desire to fund the Contras, would soon converge in ways that would shock the nation.
I came here to tell you the truth. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I am here to tell it all, pleasant and unpleasant. And I am here to accept responsibility for that which I did. I will not accept responsibility for that which I did not do.
The simple yet intricate scheme began to take shape in the summer of 1985. The U.S. secretly sold weapons to Iran through Israeli arms dealers. Iran, facing high tensions with the U.S., purchased these weapons at inflated prices. The profits would then fund the Contras in Nicaragua without congressional knowledge and also free the American hostages held by Hezbollah. This operation raised many questions since it violated laws about how far the government should go in the name of national security. At the center of this operation was Marine Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, an officer on the National Security Council staff, and created the Enterprise, a top-secret operation in Switzerland Lake Resources. Iran paid $30 million for weapons worth $12 million, with the $18 million difference going into the Enterprise's Swiss accounts. The money was hidden from the U.S. Treasury by using banking secrecy laws, making it virtually untraceable. The Enterprise spanned over U.S., Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the Contras. Then, in the fall of 1986, a single incident began to unravel the Iran-Contra affair. If these events were to happen now, Americans would probably be mad at how Iran is essentially blackmailing the U.S. into freeing the hostages. It would also cause distrust in the government. The Iran-Contra affair shows how covert operations can have unintended outcomes and create debates of how to balance accountability and security.
On October 5, 1986, a supply plane flying over northern Nicaragua carrying weapons was shot down by the Sandinista army. The only survivor, American Eugene Hasenfuss, revealed that he was hired by the CIA to load and drop weapons to the Contras.
Hands tied with these 2 kids. It was all set up. It was a total setup. It wasn't rehearsed or anything, but I knew they took me back.
Soon after, the scandal began to unfold. 3 separate bodies launched investigations: the Tower Commission, appointed by President Reagan himself, congressional committees, and a special prosecutor.
The story is one not of covert activity alone, but of covert foreign policy. Not secret diplomacy, which Congress has always accepted, but secret policymaking, which the Constitution has always rejected.
The investigations exposed a shadow government operating within the White House. The Reagan administration had defied the Boland Amendment, which sets to limit government assistance for the Contras. They also conducted foreign policy through private citizens, bypassing the State Department.
What would have been right is to respect the laws of Congress, because those are people that were elected by Americans. So Americans should also be given the right to determine how national security is to be discussed and executed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, stick with the law.
As investigators closed in, key documents were shredded. Oliver North's secretary, Fawn Hall, even smuggled documents out of the White House in her boots and dress. This isn't just destroying evidence, but demolishing accountability, showing how far individuals can go to protect power, and highlights the significance of checks and balances to keep the government accountable to the public.
This affair was revealed to the public on November 3, 1986 by Lebanese newspaper Al Shara, shocking people from all over the world. Journalists and investigators started piecing together the puzzle, discovering the interrelation between the arms sales and funding the Contras in Nicaragua. The American public watched in disbelief as the scandal unfolded. Key figures such as Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, John Poindexter, the National Security Advisor, George H.W. Bush, the Vice President, Caspar Weinberger, the Secretary of Defense, Elliot Abrams, the Assistant Secretary for Inter-American Affairs, and William Casey, the CIA Director, were all revealed to be involved. Whistleblowers were behind the scenes, eventually exposing the covert operation, Colonel Oliver North being the most infamous figure in the scandal. Some saw it as necessary in the fight against communism, while others saw it as a betrayal of trust from their government. Citizens demanded their right to transparency, considering this was a democracy. The scandal revealed a tremendous lack of accountability, making Americans question the justice in the system. What's the point if they can break the law and get away with it? Despite public outrage, legal consequences were limited. Oliver North's conviction was overturned and John Poindexter was found guilty of 5 felonies, but also wasn't charged. In 1992, President Bush issued pardons to 6 key figures involved in the scandal, sending a clear message to many. Political power shielded individuals from legal consequences.
After the scandal was exposed to the public, Reagan's approval ratings plummeted from 67% to 56% in just 1 week, the single largest drop for any president in U.S. history.
Okay, so did Reagan's administration achieve any strategic successes through the actions of the Iran-Contra affair that outweigh the ethical and legal criticisms?
Great question. No, I don't believe so. I mean, I definitely think that if you and I were to ask this question of the families of people that were killed and kidnapped in Nicaragua by the Contras, I don't think they would say that anything would justify the killing of their loved ones. And with respect to Iran, which was involved in a very long, very brutal, old-fashioned, literally tanks on the ground attacking one another.
This scandal left an indelible mark on U.S. history, leading to the Intelligence Oversight Act, requiring presidents to inform congressional committees of all covert operations. It exposed a dangerous contradiction between national security and democratic principles, a tension that's still unresolved today. The Iran-Contra affair showed us that our leaders must be held accountable, and trust in the government isn't something that we should always take for granted. Today, that C-123 cargo plane is a trivial artifact of what was once a constitutional crisis. It disclosed how the government can override constitutional boundaries, diminishing citizens' trusts. But the question remains, what responsibilities do our leaders possess to make sure the power remains within constitutional bounds? What happens when trust in the government is lost? Is national security enough to justify breaking the law? We still continue searching for these questions' answers, reminding us that balancing rights and responsibilities is crucial for a healthy democracy.